Okay, welcome to the PIAA Championship edition of the WPIAL Blitz Show and Fresh Set of Downs. My name is Bruce Badgley. With me today is my buddy Dave Micah from Eastern PA Football, Joe Santaliquito, who covers District 1 and District 12 for Eastern PA Football. Of course, Mr. WPIAL Blitz himself, Ian McMeans. And Ian, we've got a very special guest to start the show tonight, don't we?
We do. We have head coach of Belle Vernon area, Matt Humbert. Coach Humbert, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on winning your first WPIAL title as a head coach and getting Belle Vernon's first title since 1995, just their second officially in school history. Ross Draver won one back in the 1960s, before it was merged into Belle Vernon. But congratulations, first title in over 20 years. So what does that mean to you and your program to finally break through and get that championship? Because you've been to a few title games before, and now you finally got the ring and got the trophy to bring back.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. I'm happy to be on. It just means gratification for a lot of hard work, energy, time, and effort that these coaches and kids have put in over the past, since really 2015. So, just gratification, I guess, and kind of a relief that we finally got it, because we've been so dang close over the past 3-4 years. That experience down there and that atmosphere, it's just to be able to win it down there. There's nothing like it. And I know there's always talk and clatter about possibly getting it out of Hines. And I don't understand why anybody would ever want to do something like that, because it's such a special place and environment, and whatever inconveniences you might experience from a pregame standpoint, the grass turfus, or whatever they might lose in terms of revenue with it. I just hope they never pull that game out of Hines, because it's truly a atmosphere and I don't really know another way to articulate this, and it might be a little corny, so bear with me, but it's a magical environment to have a championship game. So gratification, I think, but it's hard to really get too gratified by it, because comes the state playoffs, and to be honest with you, that's something that we really have been striving for as well. We kind of had to kick in that door first. You can't really talk about the state until you get to WPIAL. But that's been something that's been on our plate and our agenda and our mind for a long time too. So we put ourselves in a good position, and hopefully we can go out there and put a good showing on in Cumberland Valley on Saturday.
Dave, you got a question for Coach Matt?
Yeah, Coach, looking at your schedule, you start the year 1-2. You're playing teams that are higher classifications than what you are. What did you learn from the 2 losses? Because after that, you're on a 10-game win streak here.
Yeah, I think what we learned is the kids are resilient, and that's something. Listen, at the end of the day, any ball club, and it doesn't matter if it's football, soccer, whatever it is, any type of organization that you have to bring people together to achieve a common goal, resiliency has to be at the forefront of that. And we all strive that. We all hope that our kids and our coaches have that. And I've witnessed that resiliency and that grit over the past 7 years at Belle Vernon. But I think that was on full display with my kids, and especially, because those losses, I think there was a lot of people that were down on us. I think there was a lot of people that, there's a lot of negativity that came out of those 2 losses. I'm just proud the way the kids never really let that get to them, and the white noise was kind of pushed to the side, and they just kind of went on and handled business. And we lost to good quality opponents. And I would like to think that if you're going to lose some games, you want to lose them early. I think anybody will tell you that. But I also think it was a good humbling experience for us, because those kids have been very successful. They won a lot of games, especially those seniors in their career. I think it kind of provided a little bit of a resetting for us, and a refocusing. And the other aspect to that is, we had a lot of new kids starting on offense. I had 6 new kids starting offense from last year. And we knew that it would be a little bit of a trial and error type process. So, I think, I hate to say it, I don't want to say that it was good. I don't think really a loss is good, but I think there were some positives to come out of that loss. And, I think that showed over the past 10 weeks.
Joe, you got a question for Coach?
Yeah, Matt, how much do you know about New McGrady, and what are your concerns with these guys?
Not much, to be honest, prior to it. I from film study and from doing some preliminary research, they're a good football team. There's no doubt about it. And they have a mix of everything. I mean, they got size up front on both sides of the ball. If you look at their defense, they got a very talented secondary. They got a Boston College recruit, and he's as good as a corner as we've seen all year. Safety number 7 is extremely aggressive in the pass game and run game. And they have size. They have size at outside backer. They're multiple. They like to jump from a 3-4 to an 80 front. So they are diversified in what they do defensively. And they're just a solid unit. Offensively, again, they're very talented. They have a lot of skill kids. The quarterback, man, he can throw any out-breaking route just as good as any kid that I've seen at the high school level. Number 5 won't be playing, but to be honest, I don't know if that they really skip a beat. I mean, the kid that came in last week after him, they got a couple backs that all have a couple hundred yards, I think, from when I looked at the stat line, because I think Battle was around 1,500. Those kids can run the ball. They're fast. So, they're good in all aspects, I guess I would say. I think the benefit from us playing Central last week, I mean, to me, that's as good as a high school passing attack as you're going to see at any classification, at any level. So I think that kind of was a good preparation for us, seeing the offense that NG provides.
Well, great. And, one of the things that I noticed too is the fact that, you dropped in classification this year. You dropped from a 4A to a 3A classification. And how is that kind of shape your perspective? Okay, the fact that you really don't have to go through the heavyweights that you would normally face there, like TJ and some of the other guys, McKeesport there in 4A as well. Did that kind of change your perspective on once you got into conference play, that you could really take this thing a long way this season?
Not really. I mean, I think there's so much ignorance surrounding the classification stuff. We didn't drop. I mean, the state of Pennsylvania came out and said, "Hey, you are a 3A school." We just decided not to play up. I have 5 sports that quote unquote dropped in classification, and we just didn't decide to play up. And our numbers, I mean, we from an enrollment standpoint, we've always been a very small 4A school. And whenever that did. Whenever we decided not to play up, I contacted the WPIAL and I got the games that we wanted. I mean, we played Penn Trafford again, we played LH, we played McKeesport and TJ. So I got to give a credit to the WPIAL for providing us those games. And not only did we want them for the competition standpoint, but the AD and me wanted to keep those rivalries. Those are good gates for everybody. We didn't want to go away from those. But, it didn't really change my perspective. I mean, I think lost in translation is, I like to do some research, and, Central Valley won 2 WPIAL championships. Sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, 2010 and 2014-ish. I might be completely wrong. But then their number came out and they accepted their number the year after that. Pine Richland won a state championship, I believe, in 2016. Next year, they come out and say, "Hey, you're 5A now." They accepted their number. So, sure. I think there was some people that kind of made a stir about us accepting our number. And I didn't really understand that. I mean, I contacted McKeesport. I contacted, Pine Richlands, Central Valley. And I said, "Hey, did this create a stir? Like it's creating a stir in our neck of the woods?" And I think all of them were kind of confused because it didn't. So, we played our number, and it is what it is. I will say I do get the question a lot of, what's the main difference between 3A and 4A? And it's interesting. And it's a valid question. I mean, I think, one thing about 3A teams, you see a lot of variation from week to week and variation within the program. I mean, like look at New Margaretti, for example. I mean, sure. They're very multiple on offense. They show you 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 different defenses. Central last week, I mean, they jumped in and out of defenses regularly. A lot of schools, and even like Avonworth in the WPIAL championship, what they did offensively, I felt like every week they changed an offense to kind of figure what was the best recipe to attack that defense and vice versa. We see a lot of diversity when it comes to what some of these 3A schools do, and it's a lot to prepare for. So, You know, I think there's a lot of really good football and good coaching at the 3A level. And, you know, we're going to see that this week for sure.
Yeah. Ian, a final question here for coach or whatever.
I actually have 2 final questions, if
Sure.
that's okay.
It's always
So a couple years ago, we had you on our WPIAL Blitz show. You were very gracious with your time, and we appreciate you coming back again. And that time when we talked with you, you mentioned about how, you know, when Belle Vernon put the gold turf in, that you and your family had vacationed out in Hershey and seen I think it was the Milton Hershey turf. That was kind of one of the things you took as inspiration for the beach at Belle Vernon. So kind of going back to the, I'll say, general Harrisburg area, you know, do you feel like comfortable with the area, that you're not going to get shocked when you get out there and be like, oh, wow, you know, I mean, obviously you guys played at Heinz Field, so, you know, that's one of the biggest stadiums in the state, but, you know, do you feel like almost like it's going to a second home out there to play a game out near Harrisburg?
No, I mean, I'm excited, to be honest with you. And ironically, we got the gold turf before Milton Hershey.
Yeah.
I remember their AD contacted me and he's like, hey, we're thinking about going with this. And we talked a little bit. I did email their AD because I was like, you know what, if we get 15, 20 minutes, I'd like to stop over and kind of take the kids to a second beach.
Yeah.
So if he's watching, I'm waiting for you to respond to my email with that. But you know, I love the Hershey area. You know, we're fortunate enough that, you know, we always have wrestlers typically that are in the state championship. So I'm always up there for wrestling and whatnot. And that's just a great area. So we're looking forward to it. I know the kids are looking forward to going out Friday, you know, and kind of getting after that. So I think I'm nothing worries me. I think it's just more excitement being able to play out there, and you know, the kids are just looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right, last question. This one's an easy one.
Yeah, go for it.
One of the things I always like to do on the WPIAL Blitz show is to give a shout out to the guys whose names who don't get out there a whole lot,
Sure.
like the offensive and defensive linemen. It's easy to find stats for running backs, wide receivers. Everyone knows how good Quentin Martin is and how heralded of a recruit he is. But you want to give a shout out to your guys down in the trenches who are really the ones who make the offense and defense go?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, ironically, though, the guy I'm going to mention is a guy that does get a lot of accolades. But you know, Braden Locke's playing defense for us. You know, what a tough kid, man. You know, and we run Braden a decent amount, so you know, his head's probably spinning because he's going from offense to defense. Not that we don't have kids that are like that with two ways, but when you look at Newman Goretti, you know, they platoon a little bit. I mean, they do have some kids that don't play both sides of the ball, and they're very fortunate for that. But he's a kid in the trenches that probably doesn't get a lot of recognition for that. Another kid's Aiden Johnson. You know, he's our tight end, and he's one of our 5 techniques, our defensive end. You know, and he's been great for us all year, and he doesn't get a lot of notoriety and a lot of the accolades that some of the other guys do. Steve Macheska is a staple for us. You know, he was one of the finalists for the Bill Fralick Award and whatnot. But then, you know, we got some other good kids. Luke Breyer does a great job for us, especially on offense. You know, you got Dane Levi, Dylan DeWitt, Zach May, Jake Heckle, all those kids, you know, put a lot of time and energy and effort into everything.
Wow. I tell you what, Coach, listen, thank you so very much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. It's great to see you again. You know, both Dave and I will be on the field there on let's see, you guys are playing Thursday, right?
No, Saturday.
Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah, 3A. Yeah. So we'll see you Saturday afternoon, and it'll be a pleasure meeting you in person.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm happy to play Saturday, man. Those teams playing on Thursday, that's a quick turnaround. Now the bad thing was, you know, with the Why I'm Missing game, you know, we were sitting there waiting patiently to try to get the film. So we're on a little bit of a short turnaround, but not really with Friday. But not to be long-winded, thanks guys for having me, and you know, we're looking forward to going out there and representing the WPIAL.
Well, it's a pleasure having you, Coach. Thanks a lot. Just go ahead and exit out, and we'll just keep
Good
on
luck,
with the
Coach.
Show. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Best of luck this week. Go get him, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Wow. How about that? I mean, what a great guy. You know, Matt, I tell you, one of the few coaches in the state that's got the mohawk working, doesn't they?
You know, but, Matt Humbert is one of the best young coaches in the WPIAL. Before he came to Belle Vernon, he turned around a Ringgold program, which had been down in the dumps for a while, got him to a couple WPIAL semifinals, and then got hired at Belle Vernon. And Belle Vernon was a team that was like, I think from 2000 to like 2014, 2015, when he took over there, they made the playoffs like 12 out of 15 years, but lost in the first round every year. And then all of a sudden it's like, a couple years of building up the program, boom, semifinal, losing the championship game. They had lost in like two out of the last 4 championship games before this year, to eventual state champions, to Thomas Jefferson and to Aliquippa. So they were losing to good teams in the playoffs, and then, like you said, their number got switched. They moved down to 3A this year, and
exactly right.
It all kind of aligned for them. They won their first WPIAL title since '95, and that was really the only thing missing in Matt Humbert's resume, was the WPIAL title. I mean, he'd done everything else you could ask of a young head coach. So it was awesome to see him get one, and it won't be his only one in his career, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. Hey, Ian, you got control. We're expecting Tim Roken from St. Joe Prep to join us in a while. Why don't we get started on evaluating these games here in Cumberland Valley this year?
Yeah, so as Bruce mentioned at the outset of the show, this is the merger of the WPIAL Blitz show and Fresh Set of Downs. The West meeting the East here as we get to Cumberland Valley for the state championship games. So let's start in 1A. We can talk about a couple of the semifinal games, then break down the championship game, and we'll work our way up to 6A. So I can talk about the Union game. Union, what a story this is for the Scotties. I mean, they were the number 10 seed out of the WPIAL. Had lost a couple close games and have really just been playing fantastic defense. I mean, I know they gave up 36 points, but the game was 46-14, I think, in the fourth quarter. And, Union started taking a bunch of penalties. They started celebrating a little early. Port Allegheny scored some touchdowns. It happens. But Union really dominated and controlled the game. And, this is just awesome. Their last WPIAL title came in 1959. And so, they finished in last place in their conference last year, hired a new head coach, Coach Nee, who was actually the defensive coordinator for the Mount Lebanon team that won the 6A title last year. So awesome story for Union, getting to the state championship game for the first time ever. And I'll let you guys talk about the Steel High Canton game, because that was probably one of the best games of the weekend.
It's really turned into like one of these postseason rivalries, Dave, that is really just fun to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And going into the season, and we talked about this, that in Class A, probably the big 3 were Steel High, Canton, Northern Lehigh, and that Steel High Canton game last week lived up to the hype, and Steel High pulled it out in the end. I think it was a 28-21 victory over Canton, and here we are going up against Cinderella Union. I mean, a team that 10th seed out of the WPIAL that won that, and has made this run all the way to Cumberland Valley. So I'm really interested to see this game. I love Union's uniforms, like their helmet, and can't wait to see them, this Thursday. But it's going to be an exciting game. Ian, tell us a little more about, their running attack.
Yeah, so I mean, Union can be multiple in a couple different ways. A lot of the offense really does run through their quarterback, Braylon Thomas, who does a bit of everything. But I think one of the hallmarks of Union is they've had different guys step up each week. So last week on our WPIAL Blitz show, we interviewed James Dodson from the Lawrence County Sports Network, who is a teacher at Union and also covers Union and the other Lawrence County teams up by Newcastle. And one of the things that he talked about was how every week during the playoffs, their Lawrence County player of the game for the Union game was a different player. And it played out last week too, that you've got, Braylon Thomas, the quarterback, you've got the Stanley brothers, you've got Mike Gunn, who plays
Hey, we
receiver
got
and
Tim
defensive back.
Roken here, guys. Let's go ahead and
Awesome.
bring
All
him
right.
in. All right.
Yeah, we'll
And
jump
come
back to this game.
Yeah, we'll
Yep.
jump back. All
Yep.
right. I'll let you introduce him, Joe. And there he is.
What's up, guys?
And his camouflage hat.
He always wears that.
I didn't even have it on too, and I was like, let me throw it on.
Yeah, I have the pleasure of introducing the head coach of the perennial state powerhouse, St. Joe's Prep, Coach Tim Roken. Fourth year,
Yes.
two-time state champion. Lost last year to a very good Mount Lebanon team, and has a team back on a mission again. Riding an 11-game winning streak going into the state championship on Saturday night at 7:00 against Harrisburg.
6
Tim,
o'clock.
I was there Saturday.
7:00, right?
I think
I
it's
keep
6
getting
o'clock.
confused. Is it
It's 7:00.
It is
7
7 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 7:00.
7, right?
I thought-
I've
okay.
heard
Yeah,
the
they
PA
changed it.
Sports or somebody had put out 6 in their bracket, and then the PIAA was sending some stuff out. And the last I heard today was 7:00, so that's what
Okay.
I'm going with. So,
Well, it don't matter the
Yeah.
time. You're going to be there.
doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter the time. That's right.
I think they
I've
had it
seen
listed. Yeah.
I've seen you 6 times this year now. And Saturday was just devastating. You beat a well-coached, excellent Garnet Valley team and made it look really, really easy. I know you and your staff have been kind of tightening the screws a little bit. You guys peaking at the right time, Tim? It looks like you are.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to be playing your best football at this time of the year. And it's a process, throughout a long season, as it always is in PA. And, we're grateful to have this opportunity again to be in this position. And, I think over the last couple of weeks, like you said, tighten the screws, and, it's all hands on deck, and, trying to go out with another state title with this senior group, and I think they're playing kind of for those seniors from last year too. There's a lot of guys that were on the field last year that are back on the field this year, and that's been in their minds since then. And as I told the guys as we're leaving practice today, is hey, you've worked. I'm so proud of them of how hard they worked. And essentially in this last 365 to a degree, right? And to get back to this opportunity, and now here we are with a week to prepare, and let's make sure that we make the most of each opportunity that we have this week. So we'll go out on Saturday and take care of business.
Hey, Bruce Badger here. My buddy Ian McMeans from the WPIAL out there, I think's got a question for you there, Coach.
Yeah, and I'm just grinning because I live in Mount Lebanon, so anytime that gets brought up that Mount Lebanon won the state title last year, I have to smile about it. So one thing I do want to ask, Coach, being a District 12 school, playing in the Philly Catholic League, you guys play a lot of teams. You essentially play a national schedule before you get into conference play. Teams from all over the place: Florida, New Jersey, New York, DC, and you're being a Catholic preparatory school, able to get students from a wide radius of areas. So how much does winning the Pennsylvania state title mean to your students?
Oh, it's a huge, accomplishment, right, for our team and for the community at St. Joe's Prep. Again, every year is every team's got a 1-year life expectancy, right? So this is a whole different group. You got to start from scratch all over again. I know from the outside in is just it's like, all right, well, here they are again, and it should be expected, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. It really takes a village, and my name gets put on it, which I take that very seriously. But we got an unbelievable group of coaches that have been here for a while, especially the core nucleus of them, and then a great administration and staff at school that support us in any way that we can, and as they do with all of our programs. And I think it's getting them to buy into what we believed in, and from the beginning when we started this thing back in 2010 with Coach Infante, and a lot of that staff is still on board, and and it's become tradition, and to make it to this point, but so we don't take those things lightly, and we understand it's a process, and like you said, we always start with a very tough schedule in the beginning of the year, to see who we are, see what we're about, right? We're gonna go test ourselves from the very beginning, and that cookie cutter recipe has been pretty successful for us over the years, and understanding who we are, what needs to get fixed, and how we need to get better. And we come back and we play with a ton of confidence in a tough Catholic league, and it's helped us as we've gotten into the state playoffs over the years, and being used to playing in big moments and big games, so that they don't shy away from the bright lights when it comes on, and wherever it's at, whether it's Hershey or Cumberland, this year in Cumberland Valley. So looking forward to the opportunity.
Dave, you got a question for Coach?
Yeah. Hey, Coach. When you played LaSalle the second time, a little closer game, what did you learn from that game?
I think, we always, the second time versus LaSalle is always a different ball game than it is the first one. We've been on both sides of it, win and loss, over the years since I've been here. And, I think, again, that's always a little, I think for that game individually this year, we were on a run there throughout since Aquinas. After losing that game, we went on a run, and then to be tested down to the wire there, it's a wake up call, and understand, hey, we got to work a little bit harder, and you got to get back to the fundamentals, and we got to make sure, that we appreciate, our opponents each week, and respect them by preparation, and, playing a game that tight, is kind of in a way, hey, it's a gift. You won a game that you really didn't play really well, and you came out on the winning side, and you get an opportunity to move forward. And now, hey, we got to make sure we do our best in preparation for each week moving forward.
Tim,
Yeah,
could you
Coach,
talk
I
about
have-
how Samaj has matured, Samaj Jones, your junior quarterback?
Yeah, I think a lot of people looked at him last year and said, wow, he's a really great athlete, and he runs the ball really well. And there were some colleges that thought, is he going to play running back, or is, because he's built like a linebacker, is he going to play linebacker? And it's like, no, he's committed to playing quarterback. And I think over the offseason, he took that as a chip on his shoulder, and kind of went to work, and wanted to make sure that he improved, especially in the pass game, and building that cohesion with, again, a group of receivers that were there last year with him. So to build that, to build that with those guys through the offseason, and then to work on himself in terms of the pass game and progressions, and commanding the offense. He's grown up and matured so much in that way.
Last year, Coach, the run that you had to the state championship, it seemed, that you were kind of exceeding expectations as you went along, starting the year and then finishing the year. How would you maybe say the difference is between, last year's run for a state championship and now this year's run for the state championship, where you've really had, a high degree of success?
I think there are a couple things there. I think, one, we were also, like I said, we were very young last year, and in a lot of positions, especially on the offensive side of the ball. All of our skill guys were mostly sophomores. So when you start the year, we started against St. Mary's out in York, and we played them out there, and you look out in the field and we're about to start the game, and we got all sophomores and to skill positions. It's like, all right, well, here we go. We're gonna see how this thing rolls out. And it was a process throughout, though. And again, we had some great seniors, but we had a lot of young guys that maybe didn't realize what it really took to get to the place we needed to get to. And we had a couple losses that again give us wake up calls and say, hey, we got to go back to work and we got to fix things and we got to find ways to get better. And I think the second time we played LaSalle, they beat us the first time. And again, I think our staff, we had been there before. LaSalle had topped us, before back in 2015 and for the Catholic League title. So we had been there before in terms of losing a game in that magnitude at that time. And understanding how to respond and what needs to be fixed and how we need to move forward. And we had a great senior group and we had a lot of young guys that at that point were like, all right, practice was a little bit different next week. And we got back to work and we got back to fundamentals. And I think that was the point of where we kind of took another step. We went on a run there for games all the way leading into the state final, and we just didn't play our best football that night. And I don't want to take any credit away from Coach Palco and the work that those guys did. Unbelievable job, and those guys were prepared. We got out coached and got outplayed on the field, and they deserved it. And we didn't play our best game, and that's going to be how it goes sometimes. So we, again, look back at that. A lot of young guys on that field that night got to watch another team celebrate in Hershey and raise that trophy. And that sits with them. Every time they didn't want to finish a workout, or every time they, slacked off at practice, whether they reminded each other or I reminded them, it's, understand what the goal is and understand how you felt last year at that time. And let's work back. Working to get there. Now here we are with a week to prepare, and let's make the most of it.
Joe, you got a final question for Coach?
Yeah, Tim, could you talk about the emergence of two young men that I'm sure Harrisburg is going to get an introduction to, Isaiah West and Eric Sanchez, two guys that were banged up earlier this season, two guys that are emerging, which again, obviously you were dangerous with Kasim Phillips already as a tailback. And now you almost you have a three-headed monster.
Yeah, I think, Caddy's done a great job in being the older group, the older brother in that group and helping those guys come along. And he's had to kind of be the guy carrying the rock besides for Samaj. I mean, over the last 2 years, we had some guys banged up in that position last year. Eric Sanchez was banged up a little bit earlier this year, as well as Isaiah. Both those guys coming back with some fresh legs at this time of the year is huge for us. So they're itching, ready to go. They've had some great performances over the last couple of weeks here, and they're just continuing to get better. But I tell you what, those two guys did really well when they were banged up is they didn't fall away from their teammates. They were at practice every day. They were engaged. They're still trying to learn. And you tell all of our guys that have, go through injuries during the year, it's, hey, now you get to wear, be in our shoes. Now you got to become a coach, right? And find ways to get better and push yourself and push your teammates. And then now here they are again, with some fresh legs, and so looking forward to watching those guys run around again on.
Yeah,
on
and real quick, one more. The other thing too, an unsung group. I've obviously done more than my share on your offensive line group, but I love the way your defensive line played against a very savvy, run-oriented Garnet Valley team. And I know the way they play. You commit upfield one step and zip, they're by you between the traps and the different various things they do. I like how disciplined your D-line was on Saturday, how they just basically maintained where they were. You see Coles Niles. I hopefully pronounced that correctly. Coles and Josiah Trotter making tackle after tackle, but a lot of it was your D-line. If you can turn around and just mention some of those guys up front and the guys that did a good job for you, and the guys obviously that are going to be counting on Saturday night.
For sure. It's led by Matt Dumont, who's wears 10 for us, is our senior defensive lineman up front there. And he's got, Maxwell Roy and Ivan Valley Green interiorly, and Sean McNulty coming off the other edge. And Ryan Kyle is doing a great job of being cycle guy for us in that interior position as well. I think those guys again, and I think this is a game that could come down to the guys up front on both sides of the ball, because both got really great skill guys running around on both sides, and some speed, and I think some size and strength up front on both sides. It really could come down to that. But these guys this past week versus a very, we told them on Monday, this is an offense that if you are not disciplined and you don't hit your strike points and you don't communicate and you don't read your keys, they could get by you very fast, right? And they did a great job up front in stunting and twisting and playing their games and hitting their strike points to allow guys like Cole and Josiah and Nick McGlynn and even our safeties to come down and make some plays there. They did a really good job at that. And again, I'm looking forward to what they can bring to the table here on Saturday. And knowing again they're young there as well, with Matt being the only senior.
Wow.
This is a group that has grown up throughout the year, and looking forward to their opportunity on the field on Saturday in the state championship game.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tim, thank you very much for some time. It's great to see you. I know that Joe and Dave and I'll be glad to shake your hand out on the field there Saturday night at whatever time it is. So listen, we really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck this Saturday. Okay.
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate you having me, and looking forward to seeing you guys Saturday night.
All right.
Absolutely.
Take care. Yeah, just exit out there, coach, and
Good
we'll
luck,
continue
Coach.
on. We'll see you later.
We'll do. Sounds good. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
take care. Yep. Wow.
There you go.
There we go. There we go. Tim Roken, always very kind to talk to us. His annual visit there, Joe. We've had him on.
He is a very, very good coach. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves, and it's kind of maybe a wacky statement to say, but you look, for example, okay, let's look at like Phil Jackson year after year with a team like the Bulls and the Lakers. Oh, look at the talent, look at the talent, look at the talent. But it also means quite a bit to put the coaching into that talent and how that talent's applied and how that talent is used. And Tim does a very, very good job of that. Tim is very, very balanced, as you see, not too high, not too low, deals with these young men in a very mature manner. He holds them incredibly accountable. I was telling you guys, was it a couple of weeks ago when they were up 35-6 at halftime, 35-6 at halftime against Northeast, and he let them have it. I heard him through the brick walls of Northeast High School, letting them have it. Now, granted, he let them have it because, again, the standards are very high. The standards are high for all these teams that are at this level that are here playing in mid-December. He let them have it because they had committed 9 penalties for 92 yards in the first half. He wasn't looking at 35-6. He was looking at 9 flags for 92 yards. And I think that's what makes Tim who he is. I think that's what makes the prep program who they are. And again, keeping that standard. They call it a prep standard. I'm here in Philly. They are some of the prep people aren't going to like this, but they're like the Dallas Cowboys in the Philadelphia area. It's a team, and it's a city that, what's the famous quote from Jason Kelsey after the Eagles won the Super Bowl out here? Everybody hates us and we don't care. Well, it's funny that you have a Philly area with a Philly team that Philly hates, and St. Joe's Prep doesn't care. As a matter of fact, they feed off of that. And going into the state championship, I'm sure there's going to be everybody and the mother, with the exception of people on that prep sideline and people behind them in the prep stands, that are going to want to see prep do well. But it's an excellent program that we're going to see the end of some legacies here. Josiah Trotter is going to be graduating. This is a big, big deal to him. And I would not be surprised if Josiah has the kind of game that I think he's going to have on Saturday night. Because I was there. I remember that, watching him walk off that field last season, tears in his eyes, very, very downtrodden. And I think I told you guys this. This is something I've been doing this for a while now, and I've never gotten this before. Josiah's the only one that's ever done this. Josiah called me the Sunday after the state championship game against Mount Lebanon, and he called me to say he was sorry for blowing me off. I said, dude, you're a 16, 17-year-old young man. It's a very traumatic time in your life. You lost a state championship. It hurts you to watch your senior teammates walk off the field the way they. No, you don't have to apologize for anything.
Yeah.
But I think it states who Josiah is as a person, the character, young man that he is. Obviously, his father, Jeremiah Trotter, the former Eagle linebacker, his mother, Tammy, and what he's about. But I would not be surprised if Josiah Trotter has one of those crazy, insane games, because I see the dynamite building. I see the explosion coming.
Yeah, well, we still got the 6A game to get to. Ian, let's go ahead and finish off the 1A here. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen there?
Yeah, can I throw in one final thought on
Sure.
Coach Roken? I think, watching from afar all the way across the state, I think one of the most impressive things that he's able to do, not just with the players on the field, but is to kind of manage the parents too, right? Like you hear all the time that when you have the parents of like 2 kids on a team that might get college offers, how much pressure they put on the coach to try and get their kid the ball every play, right? Even if you have 1 kid on a team, how much pressure those parents put on, or, and not just parents, but handlers and everything else. But he's got an entire team full of it, and he's able to get them all to come together and work together towards a common goal. And from afar, it's impressive.
Yeah, it is.
And Ian, the twisted side of that is that they're in so many blowouts that a lot of those what would be lesser used kids on prep, I mean, they could start for a lot of other teams. They get full halves to play. A lot of times those kids get into those games. They get into those games because they're blowing out so many of the area teams.
Sure.
And that gets them, for example, there was a couple guys that were used in the second half. You played the whole second half of a state semifinal game against Garner Valley and did very well.
Yeah.
So that's where, that's where some of that balance comes in. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah. Oh, so that was my thought. We can bounce back to the 1A championship game
that
we were talking about before with Union and Steel High. So, and this really is kind of, almost Cinderella against the powerhouse that Steel High's never lost in a state championship game. They're 3-0 in state finals. Union not only appearing in their first one, but winning their first WPIAL title since the 1950s. And it's such a great story for Union. And just to give you guys some perspective too, with Dave and Joe, Union is a small school on the fringe of Newcastle, it's kind of on the Ohio side of Newcastle. And, a couple of years ago, they had such low roster numbers that they were talking about exploring co-op agreements or maybe folding the program. And now they won a WPIAL title and they're playing for a state championship. Like, it's just so cool to see that turnaround story. And the way they started this year, Dave, you might remember that Union's game, they were supposed to play Mohawk, and Mohawk was getting investigated for a hazing incident. Mohawk had to cancel the game. Union went out and scheduled Canton, who was, I think at that time, the number 1 or number 2 ranked team in the state. Union could have very easily just said, hey, we'll take the week off. We'll prepare for next week. They went out and brought in Canton to play them, not only to give their own kids a game, but just to see how they measured up. And, I really all the credit in the world to that Union program for bringing in a team from the other side of the state. And I was actually kind of hoping that they'd get to rematch in the state championship, even though Canton won that game 31-19 and handled Union a lot.
That would have been really funny.
It was just such a cool story that, 4 days before a game's supposed to happen, they go out and or 3 days, I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday, that they contacted the Canton guys and they're like, hey, do you guys want to, come out to Newcastle, PA to play a game? And I think they wound up meeting somewhere in the middle, like Bald Eagle or something, no, they might have, I don't remember where they played, but at any rate, that, they did something they didn't have to do. They went out and scheduled a game, got a game for both teams. And they actually had invited the Mohawk band to come play at the game too, because they said, hey, it's not your fault. Your football team's getting investigated. So why don't you come and play too? So just such a cool story around the Union team. I'll let you guys talk about Steel High. You're the experts out there in D3.
Well, I just find it so ironic. You have a program just reeks of history here. Steel High, you can see all the district championships, consecutive PIAA championships here. I
forgot to add 2020 to that state title.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
07, 08, 2020.
That's okay.
But versus Union, I think it's a great story, and that's what Joe will be writing about. All these great stories when we get to Cumberland Valley.
Absolutely. And listen, Steel High, it starts with their quarterback. Irby, he's thrown up a lot of numbers. I think in one game this year, he threw for 501 yards, I think 7 touchdowns in a game. Now, regardless of who you're playing, that's impressive. I mean, for some people, that's a whole season of throwing. But they have so many weapons. They have the size, they have the speed. They could beat you by throwing the ball, they could beat you by running the ball. So they could do so many different,
and don't forget about their defense too. They have really a stellar defense that really swarms the ball. So it's going to be a really interesting story.
And you look at last year, they lost a heartbreaker to Canton, who Canton went on to lose to Bishop Guilfoyle, who's now up in 2A. I think after winning the state title a couple years ago, they're on a mission, and I think their approach is Union's in their way. And but listen, Thursday afternoon, it's going to be a great game. Great story again about Union, number 10 seed to make it all the way to the state championship. I mean, right there's a win in itself.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Onward and upward.
On to 2A. As a segue here, Steel High's only loss this year came against Westinghouse, who is now playing Southern Columbia in the 2A championship. Westinghouse, out of the Pittsburgh City League, first City League school to reach a state title game in 25 years. So really cool story for Westinghouse. It's their first trip to the state title game as a school. Perry had been the only other City League school to make it to a state championship. And Westinghouse, I mean, I don't know how many good things I can say about what they've done this year. The way they handled Steel Valley, to put it in perspective, Steel Valley had 5 guys, their quarterback and 4 running backs, who were all averaging over 10 yards a carry, and Westinghouse shut their running game down. And it was just what Westinghouse is able to do in the trenches, on offense and on defense, is just so impressive. And now they get to take on Southern Columbia because, of course, they do.
Yeah, I think it's really great. I mean, I've been likening it, when I've been talking to both Dave and Joe on, a Philadelphia, City League team rising up and, winning District 12, besides, Imhotep there. But, obviously Southern Columbia, I mean, what's the phrase there, news of their demise has been greatly exaggerated. I mean, they played their best football.
That's not even accurate either. that quote from Mark Twain's not even accurate either, but go ahead. I just got done writing about that.
Oh,
that's not even accurate either, but go ahead.
But I think, Southern Columbia is proving that they're for real, and that they've got something to prove. And I think that's the most dangerous thing that there is. I mean, Coach Roth and that team, Southern Columbia, something to prove. I don't know. Yeah. That's tough.
Is this Jim Ross one of his best years of coaching? I mean, listen, they lost to 3 very good programs in the regular season: Loyalsock, Danville, Mount Carmel. And, everyone thought, okay, Southern's done. Mount Carmel's going to win. And boy, ever since Wes Barnes has come back from his injury, that combination of Barnes and Wisłowski, it's a tough combination to stop. I mean, last week, I think against Trinity, those two combined for 400 yards rushing. This is a Southern team that probably doesn't throw as much as they've had recently. Their junior quarterback, Blake Weiss, I think he's only thrown for like maybe 800 yards all year. So, it's going to come down to, can Westinghouse stop the duo of Barnes and Wisłowski?
Well, it sounds like they did with Steel Valley. I mean, so what do you think, Ian?
Yeah, and with Steel Valley, I mean, they got a couple key turnovers to a couple interceptions. and it's really going to be, can they make Southern Columbia play from behind is going to be the question, because if Southern Columbia does what they did last year and the year before and the year before and the year before, which is get out to an early, 14-0 lead, and then just be able to lean on their running game and drain the clock. And then the other team starts to get desperate and starts to put the ball in the air. And
then they take advantage of the mistakes.
Yeah.
And,
and then you wind up with a 49-7 championship game, or, 70-7, like it was against Avonworth a few years back.
I don't think it'll be that, but
no. But this Westinghouse program is one that, I mean, they were a very proud program historically. You can see they've won a lot of they won a lot of Pittsburgh City League championships over time, and just kind of never catapulted that into a run in the state playoffs. And the Pittsburgh City League is, it's shrunk over time. The city's consolidated high schools. There's only like 5 or 6 teams in the City League right now that still play football. But what they've been able to do, what Coach Dante Green's been able to do at Westinghouse, is supremely impressive, to get those kids to all buy in and play together and play towards a common goal. And just, the way the coaches and the players comport themselves is, it's like a business. It's like they come out there to take care of business, and they celebrate, and they have fun and have a good time, but no one thought they were capable of doing what they've done, and they've basically played all season with this chip on their shoulder that they always consider themselves the underdogs, and they're going to be the underdogs once again. And they're just out there to prove everybody wrong. And I could say they're playing with house money. They've been playing with house money all year, but nothing has stopped them either. I mean, they went out and smoked a very good Clairton team early in the year. They beat Steel High convincingly. And I know those are both 1A schools, and this is the 2A championship game, but just every team that they've come up against, right? A very good Farrell team from District 10 that they pounded, a very good Steel Valley team that they took it to. And I think Southern Columbia plays very similarly with their run heavy offense to how Farrell and how Steel Valley play. And if Keyshawn Morcillo gets loose for Westinghouse, like, watch out, because he can throw and he can run, and they've got some playmakers on that team. So I really think, though, the key is how the game starts, how the first quarter goes. That if Westinghouse doesn't go down 14-0, they can make a game of it and stick with Southern. But if they get down early, they're in trouble.
I think this game's going to be much closer than people think. Just because when Southern was losing all those state titles, they changed it up by throwing more. And that's when they got successful. This team doesn't throw too much. Some could say, okay, they're more one-dimensional than what they've been recently. So that's why I think this game, to me, is a toss-up. Listen, until someone beats Southern, you got to favor Southern in this game. But I think this game's going to be a lot closer than what people think.
Well, let's hope so. Hopefully it's close. Yeah. Hopefully it's
I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to be close at all. I don't think it's going to be close at all.
You think
I can't get it out of my head what they do each year. I can't get it out of my head each year after year, what Roth and Southern Columbia does. Until otherwise, I think they're going to smoke this team. I think they're going to smoke this team. Granted, Westinghouse, it's a great story, all that stuff. It's all fine. But there has to be some stock, especially at this level with these young people, that goes into, we're going to be there. We know we're going to be there. We expect to win, where Westinghouse comes in. And those young men have heard all the accolades. They know what's out there. This is a completely new stage for them. And like Ian said, I think it was a great point. If Southern Columbia gets off to a great start, which there's a likelihood they probably will, this turns into a runaway freight train. And I've seen Roth and Southern Columbia do it too often.
Yeah. Sounds like there's going to be a lot of drama, which is great. I mean, that's good. When was the last time that we had any drama in a Southern Columbia state championship game? Usually they're, they're so heavily favored, but I
I
think that
don't know
this,
if there's going to be any drama. I think Southern
Yeah.
Columbia is going to smoke them.
okay. All right.
You honestly
right,
can't
well.
even you can't even count 2016 because Steel Valley mercy ruled Southern Columbia that
Yeah.
year, so there
Yeah.
wasn't even any drama in that game.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right,
I mean,
3A. Let's move on.
All right.
it's-
So in 3A, we talked with Matt Humbert at the beginning of the show. Belle Vernon's head coach won a very close game against Central Martinsburg. Get to face a Newman Goretti team that got past Wyomissing. Wyo had beaten Newman Goretti in the semifinals last year, so a bit of a revenge for Newman Goretti. And looking at these two teams head to head, I think Coach Humbert kind of hit it on the head too, that Belle Vernon has seen a lot of different types of offenses so far as they went through the WPIAL playoffs. They played a Freeport team that ran the ball a lot. They played an Avonworth team that could both run and throw and kind of mixed it up week by week. But by the time they got to the championship game, Avonworth was pretty much primarily running the ball. And then they had to turn around a week later and go play a Central Martinsburg team that throws the ball all over the yard. So Belle Vernon's defense has really stepped it up here, down the stretch run, and just what they've been able to do this season is really, really impressive. And now they take on a Newman Goretti team that, statistically kind of pretty similar. I'll say both are playing pretty good defense. Both of them are appearing in their first state championship game. So kind of new ground for both of them. And I think that Belle Vernon, coming in obviously with Quentin Martin, I argue he's the best junior in the state, heralded recruit at both running back and safety, and pretty much every major college offer you can think of. Coach Franklin from Penn State's been to multiple games this year. Martin missed some time with a sort of nagging injury earlier in the year, and really for a lot of games only played the first half because Belle Vernon really, took it to a lot of teams, especially once they got into conference play. Like once they started playing 3A opponents, no one was close against them until they got to Central Martinsburg in the semifinals. So,
And that's why I asked the question, the fact that, ask coach the question, the fact that he's playing a 3A schedule instead of a 4A schedule. And the perspective of it is like you talked about. I mean, they're used to playing teams like TJ and McKeesport and Aliquippa.
Yeah.
And
having to go through that gauntlet just to win a WPIAL title before you even get to the state playoffs, and it's a little bit different.
It's
granted, they played TJ and McKeesport in non-conference play this year, which I think speaks to Belle Vernon's willingness to go out there and challenge themselves, right? That they didn't be like, okay, we're a 3A school now, we're only going to play 3A programs. You heard Coach Humbert, who's also the AD for the school, but he said, hey, we went out and tried to keep a lot of our traditional 4A and 5A rivals on the schedule in non-conference play. But these are both teams that are battle tested. I think that's really what it comes down to, is both of them have played a lot of tough opponents this year. Both of them have been through the ringer. They've both suffered a few losses and learned from them, and both had tough semifinal games. I mean, that Newman Goretti Wyo semifinal literally came down to the final seconds. I'll let Bruce or Dave tell the story of it, but I mean, that was just back and forth to the end.
Yeah, it was a really wild ending, and came down with Goretti pulling it out. But it's really hard to pick this one. I think this is probably going to be the most competitive, most entertaining, could be the most competitive, most entertaining game of the weekend. What do you think, Joe?
I think McDevitt and Aliquippa is going to be, my opinion, that's going to be the most entertaining. This could be a competitive game. We still don't know the status of Sean Battle right now. That's in the appeal process of what happened there, but still, Newman Goretti played the last quarter and a half without him and won. It is a team that plays a stifling brand of defense. They do give you multiple fronts and looks. The thing that I like about this team with Coach Albie Crosby, and I spoke to Albie about this earlier today, is how, I mean, not that those teams in the past didn't lack discipline, but this team seems to have more discipline. This is a team that dots its I's and crosses its T's. You got a defense here up front, with or without Battle. Deshaun Dotson played exceptionally well. Kareem Reed, Corn Robinson. They held Northwestern
Got a lot
Lehigh,
of
game that I
depth.
did cover. They were all over the field. They smothered them. And there's an attitude here with this team that, especially beating YO the way they beat YO, has instilled in them a kind of confidence that this deep into the season they haven't had before. Now, again, maybe Ian would know. I don't know what kind of speed. I mean, Belverde obviously has a star player here, but do they have the overall team speed to stay with New England? That would be the big question if I'm Belverde.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, listen, I don't know what to, take on this game. Two teams that have never been there. I know Newman has the size, the speed, but the big question is Battle going to play? I like Belle Vernon, they played, I like what coach said. They purposely wanted to play a tough schedule to kind of prepare for this. If you would have to favor someone, for me, I would favor Belle Vernon, slightly in this game. I just think, that they're going to be very well prepared for this game. And it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Albie finally gets by
Yeah.
YM missing, after losing with Emotep and Newman.
Sure.
It's going to be a game that, I don't have a lot of take on, with this game. Two great teams. We'll see how it shakes out, this weekend.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on 3A, Ian?
Yeah. So I think one of the hallmarks of Matt Humbert's Belle Vernon teams over the years, it came up short in a lot of WPIAL title games, but one of the hallmarks of his teams was always being very strong from a fundamental standpoint. I've seen them play against some supremely talented players. Rodney Gallagher from Laurel Highlands, for one, who's going to West Virginia, just completely dynamic player with the ball in his hands. He's going to be a wide receiver at West Virginia, but they put him at quarterback for Laurel Highlands. And the way Belle Vernon schemed for his speed and the way that, the first guy to the ball always got him on the ground, I think speaks to just how well they coach their defensive players in just tackling fundamentals. And that's something that every Belle Vernon game I've seen, even, when they lost to Aliquippa in the WPIAL championship last year, yeah, Aliquippa ran the ball all over them, but Belle Vernon fundamentally is always very strong, and Newman might have a lot of speed. But if, I think Belle Vernon, if they don't have the speed to match them, I think they can counteract that tactically with just good, solid fundamentals, especially up front, where, if you can control the game in the trenches, and if the first guy to the ball is bringing down the ball carrier and you're not, having guys break tackles and break off 60-yard runs, then that makes a huge difference in how a game might play out. And really for Belle Vernon in these playoffs, they've ground out a lot of games. Like the WPIAL championship game, yeah, it was a 27-7 win over Avonworth, but it was really Quentin Martin scored 3 touchdowns. He scored on a screen pass, he scored on a long run, and he scored on a punt return. And that was pretty much it for the game. They've been able to find those big plays during games, kind of similar with the Central Martinsburg semifinal game, that they were able to find some big plays here and there, and get it done. And they find ways to get the ball in Quentin Martin's hands, which is what they should do.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Cool. All right, on to 4A, where we get a rematch between Aliquippa and Bishop McDevitt for the state championship. I don't know how much is worth talking about the semifinals here. Both of them routed their opponents en route to the championship game. So let's just talk about the title game. Aliquippa has the longest winning streak in the state. I believe there's only 2 teams in the state right now that are undefeated, which is Aliquippa and Westinghouse. So, both of them reaching the state championship game. Aliquippa, obviously the defending 4A state champions, after being forced up by the success formula. And I mean, just what Aliquippa is able to do as a 1A size school, having to play in 4A, is just astounding. What they have up front with the trench dogs on the line, that is just like, those guys those guys are bigger than the Steelers offensive line. Like they're high school kids, and what they do in the trenches and how they dominate on both sides of the ball. This team is out to prove something. That championship last year was good, but you can just see it in what they say and what the coaches say. We interviewed their head coach, Mike Warfield. They're out to prove something this year, and go back-to-back state titles, which for everything Aliquip has done in their history is something they've never done before. Last week's win was their 770th in school history, which tied them for the most in the WPIAL. So if they win this week, not only would they be back-to-back state champions, but they would have the most wins of any team in WPIAL history. So there's a lot that this team is out here to prove, and this has been the goal from day one, was to get back to this game and to win it. And they're absolutely playing their best ball of the year. And Taquay Hayes as a sophomore, what he's able to do as a running back, this kid could probably go play in college right now. He's that good, and has major college offers from everywhere. But they're multiple too. Last week Quentin Good threw for I think 3 touchdown passes. So what Aliquip is able to do on offense, and with all the guys they have on defense, between the guys on the line, Nate Lindsay and Cam Lindsay and Donovan Walker and Brandon Banks in the secondary, it's just like, these guys are just loaded all over the place. And I know McDevitt's a great team, and this is a great rematch. A lot of the same kids from McDevitt are back from last year's team too. So this has kind of been 2 trains, 1 track all year, that they've just run over the competition. So I'm really looking forward to this game, and we'll see what happens. But the one thing I do know is that Aliquip is never going to back down from anyone or any situation. You saw that last year when McDevitt got up early and Aliquip just stuck with it and came back. So it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, Dave,
Absolutely.
you and I have seen McDevitt in consecutive weeks. I saw them win a district championship. You saw them win their playoff game last year. They're a machine.
Yeah.
They're a machine. I think physically they're going to beat you up, in the trenches. They've got the skill position, but that's the same thing, on the other side with Aliquippa. It showed, last year McDevitt got out in front early, and then Aliquippa kind of took control of the game and ended up winning. That bad taste is still in their mouth. Last year, McDevitt, I don't think that they fully expected to be in the championship game. Okay. They were a year ahead of schedule. This year, they expected to be in this championship game. They expected to be on this stage. They have an enormous amount of confidence. They know what they're up against. Okay. Both of these teams, I think that's the best thing about it. Now, I think it's a much more level playing field, both physically and emotionally. So it will be a knockdown drag out. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think so. And it starts with Stone Saunders, the sophomore quarterback. I was looking at his stats.
Seems like he's been around forever already.
Oh, I know. But
Dave, isn't he a junior?
No, he's a sophomore. So
Stone's
this
a sophomore?
kid, yes. So he's thrown for 6,500 yards in his career. Now, this is the most impressive stat. 95 touchdown passes, only 7 interceptions. 7 interceptions. So, I saw them last week. As good as their offense is, their defense was impressive last week.
Their defense is better, I think.
Oh, Crestwood, they held Crestwood at 26 total yards. Crestwood's 2,000-yard rusher, 11 carries, 1 yard. It was as impressive as their offense was, their defense. And, this is to me like a prize fight. This is the one I want to see. Round 1 went to Aliquippa. Who's going to win round 2? Boy, we're going to find out.
All right, Mr. Boxing Writer, what do you think?
Well, I don't have much familiarity. Now, let me get this. Quentin Good, he is a junior, correct?
Yeah.
He is a junior. And Stone is a sophomore?
Yeah.
Taquay Hayes is a sophomore too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I do know this. Some of the history here. This is the first time. Aliquippa obviously has a storied history. This is the first time they're ever playing for repeat state championships, never won back-to-back titles. The other thing with Aliquippa going into this would be the first Aliquippa team ever. This would be the first undefeated state champion Aliquippa team. So that's the history they're looking for. McDevitt's history is not as strong, certainly, as Aliquippa's. Last time McDevitt won a state title was back in 1995.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
been a while. It's been a while. They've had some rocky situations, but this is going to be.
Is that an
And I've
intentional
already
pun
written this
because of the
for
rock
Dave.
pile?
This is going to be. This is going to be the game. This is going to be the game of the week. This is going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be the game of the week.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think that it has all the storylines. Obviously, for a writer like Joe is, I mean, he's got any number of different ways. I'm sure he goes in, into writing his stories. Like, what storyline is going to be? There could be any number of different storylines in this one. You just touched on it there, and that's the best part, is the fact that it's all going to unfold in front of us. It's going to be a great game, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. That's for sure. I mean, two real heavyweights just battling it out. So it doesn't get much better than this.
Yeah. And I think my closing thought here on Aliquippa too is that, they're still very angry at the PIAA. And I think they want to go out and stick it to the PIAA by raising a trophy and taking it back to Aliquippa, because they're still very, very angry about the whole playing up success formula situation. Especially,
so, hang on, Ian, they're really that tiny? They are a class A population wise?
Yeah, very small.
That's amazing. That is incredible.
They have 45 kids on their roster, and I think McDevitt has 75. And and Aliquippa as a community, I mean, it's an old steel town on the Ohio River. The steel mill closed, everyone left town, the town went downhill. Economically, it's a pretty impoverished area, very transient population. And that's actually what's hurt them in the eyes of the PIAA with the success formula, because they have a transient population. I think it's like 80% renters or something. Like, it's insane. That because you have families that move in and out so much, that the PA is like, oh, you get all these transfers. You got new kids on your roster. It's like, well, yeah, because, someone had to, whatever, people move. People don't move to Aliquippa to like live in Aliquippa. People move to Aliquippa because they have to
nowhere
for
else to
job
go.
or family or whatever, right? Or, a kid now has to go live with his grandparents because a divorce happened or whatever, a lot of things happen, right? I mean, kid who was a kid that's not talked about this year, Antonio Anderson, that he was a star wide receiver on their team 2 years ago. He got shot in a drive-by shooting, missed his whole senior year, got granted an extra year of eligibility because he wasn't really able to go to school either. And so, I mean, he's not playing this year, but like, he's technically a senior in high school now. He got granted that extra year of eligibility, but like, that's the kind of stuff that it's like, just the town of Aliquippa itself doesn't take crap from anyone, and they're out there to prove something, and it's not about proving it to themselves, because they know, last year when they won, the shirts they made said whatever A. They're like 1A, 3A, 4A, whatever A, we'll play in it and we'll win it. And they're still very angry about the whole success formula thing, and part of it is that Southern Columbia got to stay in 2A and they're up in 4A.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to 5A here.
All right, in the semifinals, Pine Richland from the WPIAL beat Cocalico out of District 3, and then Imhotep Charter won a hard-fought game over Upper Dublin, an Upper Dublin team that I believe had shut out their first 3 opponents in the playoff bracket, and then won the District 1 title. So Pine Richland, Cocalico, those were 2 teams that wanted to run the ball, and Pine Richland really shut them down on defense. And interestingly enough, Pine Richland kind of took to the air a little bit in this game and threw the ball a bit more than they had done all year. For Pine Richland, really the storyline is that they started the year 1-3 and made a quarterback change. They put Ryan Palmieri at quarterback. He had played quarterback last year. Their starter last year, Cole Boyd, who was a senior, got injured halfway through the year. Palmieri came in, finished out the year. This year, new head coach came in, Coach John Ladon, I should say Dr. John Ladon, came in, had been the head coach at Penn Hills when Penn Hills won their WPIAL and state championship a few years ago. Lives in Pine Richland, now coaches at Pine Richland. Started the year with, tried a couple different guys at quarterback. They started 1-3, put Palmieri back in at quarterback, and have now, gone on a big winning streak, won 11 games in a row, and are here in the state championship game. So this is a Pine Richland program that's been here before. This is a head coach, while it's his first year at Pine Richland, has a state championship under his belt when he was at Penn Hills. So this is a team that knows what to do when they get here. Granted, it's some different players, but nevertheless, just a really, really impressive run from Pine Richland. Now get to take on, an Imhotep charter team that's kind of the powerhouse out of the East. And, I think one interesting side note here is that looking back at the bracket, sorry, I jumped ahead, but Pine Richland beat Penn Trafford in the first round of the playoffs, who was the defending 5A state champions. It was actually the third straight year that Pine Richland and Penn Trafford played in the playoffs. And the winner of that game each year has now gone to the state championship game. So Pine Richland beat Penn Trafford in 2020 and wound up winning the state title. Penn Trafford beat Pine Richland last year, won the state title, and Pine Richland beat Penn Trafford this year and now is in the state championship game. So pretty cool little, historical tidbit there. But, this is a Pine Richland team that really wants to come out and run the ball between Palmieri and Pilar.
I broadcast the game.
This is Pine Richland's third appearance in the state championship?
Fifth.
This is their fifth.
Yes.
Yeah. But I guess, and the other thing is I think Pine Richland is the only, since we've gone to 6 classifications, I think Pine Richland is the only school to win it in multiple classifications.
Aliquippa won 3A and 4A.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, all I know is, to your point, I broadcast the game against Cocalico, and it was surprising that they were airing it out. Okay. They made Cocalico, required Cocalico then to defend the whole field, which opened up the running game for Palmieri and Pillar. And Pillar is a beast. He had some great runs. So a nice 1-2 punch. That Gelly, the wide receiver, good down the middle, got good speed. And so I was impressed with Pine Richland. But Imhotep Charter, wow. What can you say? They've, with the exception of, a couple games here, they played very well. I saw them in the Peach Bowl. They were totally impressive, beating Bishop McDevitt. And this is going to be a really tough one, I think, for Pine Richland, only because of the Imhotep defense. They've not faced a defense like Imhotep all season. I know that there are some tough teams out in the WPIAL, but the Imhotep defense is just stellar. What do you think, Joe?
I agree. I think Imhotep's problem is, and that is they reached comfort zones. It was 21-0 against Upper Dublin, and they relaxed, and it came back to bite them. They almost lost that game. There were 2 very important stops in the first half of that game where Upper Dublin was in the red zone. And I was telling you guys, I had a feeling this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a struggle. I wasn't saying that Upper Dublin was going to beat them, but Upper Dublin really pushed Imhotep to some lengths that Imhotep didn't even think they would be able to do, but they certainly did. Upper Dublin hurt them. They can be hurt through the air. But the other side of it is that Imhotep has such a fierce pass rush that you want to take chances by trying to put the ball through the air, because the 2 times Upper Dublin had the ball in the red zone, there was a deflected pass that resulted in a Ramir Stewart interception. And there was another situation where Imhotep stopped them on downs. They are a swarming defense. They are quick. They are fast. They are athletic. And the other key is junior quarterback Mikhail Davis. He's done a lot of growing up in a year's time. There's far more confidence with him when he has the ball. And the problem Pine Richland's going to have with Mikhail is he improvises. If he doesn't know what he's going to do next, how is Pine Richland going to know what he's going to do next? And that's that's an issue. And very often, he made huge plays in the Upper Dublin game. He's made huge plays throughout the playoffs. He made big plays against Roman Catholic. Jabri Wallace-Coleman got off a little bit against Upper Dublin, but I see that may be an explosion waiting to happen. He is the sophomore that's already committed to Georgia. He's an explosive tailback, and I think just coming now into his own, and we're going to hear more and more of him because he's kind of like a high school Javon Curse, is Zaire Mathis. He is a 6'6", 210-pound sophomore defensive end for Imhotep, who deflected 2 passes, had 2 sacks, and had 4 tackles total. And he's just coming back. So obviously Pine Richland's going to have to turn around and watch for him. I mean, this is a 6'6", 210-pound sophomore who has great footwork. He's a high school Javon Curse. So we'll see if Pine Richland's going to be able to hold him off.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, listen, MLTEP has a tremendous defense. They don't give up a lot of points. This one, you have to look at, Pine Richland, they've had success at the state championship games. For MOTEP, they have won 1 state title, but for some reason, when they get to this game, it hasn't gone their way. And that's why, for me, I'm personally gonna, favor Pine Richland a little bit in this game. But if MLTEP could put it all together with their defense, get their offense going, they'll have a shot to win this state title. And I think this is a team that Coach Johnson has, I think playing at a high level, and he's going to have them hopefully prepared for this championship game. But I think this game could be a low scoring, close affair.
I think Imhotep is infinitely improved over last year's team that lost in the championship game. Not only from a player perspective, from a coaching perspective. I think that Coach Johnson has, brought in some new coaches that are going to be beneficial and, not only game planning, but in-game adjustments. And I think that, quite honestly, I think that that's going to could be one of the X factors to get Imhotep over the top. Ian, final thought, maybe?
Yeah, if you want to talk about coaching, Pine Richland has multiple former NFL players on their staff.
I know. I get it.
Bill Stoll is their quarterback coach who played at Pitt and then with the Kansas City Chiefs, and then Vince Williams, who just finished his career with the Steelers as a linebackers coach. So, Pine Richland has always done an impressive job of going out and kind of finding those ex-NFL players that happen to live in their community and getting them to be head coach or assistant coaches on the team. But, Pine Richland's just rolling right now. I think I told you, Bruce, we probably talked, it was probably week 7 or 8 when we were talking about like our WPIAL top 5s that we did. And I said, I almost put Pine Richland in this week. And you're like, they've got 3 losses. How could you put them in? I said, they just beat North Allegheny and Central Catholic, 2 6A teams in back-to-back weeks. I said, they're the hottest team in the WPIAL right now, regardless of classification, other than Aliquippa. And they've shown that throughout the playoffs, that they're just on a roll right now. Everything is clicking for them. And just the way they've just rolled through the WPIAL playoffs, and rolled through the state playoffs now is really impressive. They got a challenge against, Cathedral Prep, that all-star team up north, as Bill Chirpak called them once. But, they got a challenge. They were down 14-0, locked it down defensively, came back to win that game 21-14. I think that, Pine Richland's just got everything clicking for them right now. And Imhotep's really good. Don't get me wrong. But, just from the Western side here, Pine Richland's just on a roll, and sometimes that's hard to slow down when a team is on a roll like that.
Yeah,
and maybe Imhotep will.
And Ian, again, you said this is the 5th time Pine Richland's been here, right?
Yeah, they lost. They lost their first 2. 2003, which was the year that Neil Walker, former Pirates second baseman, was the running back on that 2003.
Yeah, we
Pine
were
Richland
talking
team.
about Neil Walker in the press box before
Yep.
the game.
Yep. And then 2014, which was the Ben DiNucci year, he went on to play in the NFL. And then 2017, which was the Phil Dracovic year, that was the one they finally won the state title.
Yep.
You know, and Dracovic
Conventionally.
is apparently going to transfer portal back to Pitt now from Boston College after
Oh, my
starting
God.
his career at after starting his career at Notre Dame. And then 2020, which was the COVID year, but that was the Cole Spencer year, as the dual threat quarterback. And Bruce remembers what Cole Spencer did against Governor Mifflin in that
I
semifinal
remember
game,
that
which
one,
was
sure.
legendary. So yeah, this is the fifth time they've won the last two. And Bruce is right. You know, they were a pretty dominant 6A program over the last decade, and then moved down to 5A and just have continued to dominate. The only real hiccup was last year when they had some off the field turmoil with their head coach got fired after winning the state title in 2020. They brought in another coach, and they still made the WPIAL semifinals, but things just didn't quite click together for them. And, you know, this year they went out and got Dr. John Ladon from Penn Hills, who had won the state title at Penn Hills, to come in and be their coach, and now is back in the state championship game.
John is the most unassuming guy. I mean, I met him
he's awesome.
I met him on the field before the game, and he's very all shucks kind of guy. And even post game, you know, but you can't argue with success. And John just exudes success. So, all right, well, let's talk about the big 6A.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
one where I don't have a whole lot of opinions on, because this is two teams from what I would call the East, even though Harrisburg is representing the West here against St. Joe's Prep. You know, Harrisburg winning the rematch against State College in the semifinals that State College had beat them earlier this year. And then, as we talked about with Coach Roken, St. Joe's Prep really just dominating Garnet Valley. So I'll let you guys talk about this one.
Well, I'll start, since I saw broadcast the Harrisburg game last Saturday, and what a performance by Kyle Williams, who's a Temple commit. Was a one-man wrecking crew, but what was most impressive was how Harrisburg physically manhandled State College, opening up holes, dominating the line of scrimmage in the second half. Something that's got to have happened if they expect to even be in the ball game with a St. Joe Prep. Physically, I think that they maybe played the best game that they could, and they've got some good size, not only on the offensive line, but the defensive line as well. They didn't let the State College quarterbacks breathe. So a lot of things that were very, very positive. Solid running game, ball control offense, great defense. Now, is that going to translate over to St. Joe Prep? I don't know. I mean, St. Joe Prep so physical and big up front on the offensive and defensive line, so skilled at, you know, all the positions there. The one thing that I can say is that Harrisburg's back end defense, I think, is going to play well. I mean, they had guys covered all day long. I mean, State College couldn't throw. Now, granted, as you talk about all the time, Joe, speed, and that's the case. But I think from a speed perspective, the Harrisburg's going to hang in there. They're not going to be one. They're not going to have their feet in the mud like a lot of teams in comparison. Just a few years ago, Harrisburg did hang in with St. Joe Prep through 3 quarters in the title game. And I think it's the same coach, Cal Everett. And the one thing that has impressed me even more so about the physical attributes of Harrisburg over this postseason run has been the coaching job by Harrisburg and their coaching staff in putting together game plans. So that's why I like Harrisburg to hang in this one. I don't think that talent-wise they match up. I don't think, overall physically they're going to match up with St. Joe Prep. But I hope that it remains to be at least a close game.
I don't think it's going to be a close game at all. I think St. Joe's Prep is going to smoke these guys. This This is the St. Joe's Prep team by halftime. They had outgained a very good Garnet Valley team, 348-34. Samaj Jones by halftime had more yards, 35 yards rushing on 3 carries than the whole Garnet Valley team had in total offense. I know these kids. I know this program. I know the coaching staff. I know, and I remember the faces walking off that field last year. And that's the heavy, powerful motivation going into this Saturday night. Teasing and joking with some of the Garnet Valley folks that I know, I said, the beast is up, and he's angry and he's hungry. And Josiah Trotter must have had 15 tackles alone in the first half. Again, the final was 48-7, and Coach Roken pulled pretty much all of his starters by halftime. So this is a well-rested team. This is a team that is showing depth at the very most important time of the year. They're rotating in on their defensive line. Their starting defensive line did an exceptional job against Garnet Valley, but now some of the X factors have emerged. Eric Sanchez is a very, very good football player, and people just only saw a peak of what that young man can do against Northeast and again against Garnet Valley. Isaiah West is a future star. Isaiah West reminds me, I'll just call poor man's Kevin Jones. It was a first-round draft choice out of by the Detroit Lions out of Cardinal O'Hara High School, one of the legendary running backs in this area. And Isaiah had scored once. And I think the other factor here is Samaj Jones. I mean,
I agree.
Last year was not a good way to end for Samaj. If you remember the last pass Samaj threw last year. The last pass Samaj threw last year, Ian, hit the back of the head of a Mount Lebanon defender. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't tossed from the game, but Coach Roken pulled him from the game. That was the last time Samaj Jones threw a pass in the 2021 season. That still stays with him. Yeah. That still hangs with him.
It was pretty windy.
I saw him literally run over.
Yeah.
I don't. No. It was Ian. It was intended for the back of his head.
Okay. Oh,
it was after a play, and it was intended for the back of his head. And Samaj has done a lot of growing up. He is a very accountable young man. It is a pass or a throw that he still regrets. But it's something there that he has learned from it. The first thing out of his mouth after Saturday's victory over Garnet Valley was, "I need to get back." And I remember seeing him a month after last year's state championship game, was to say January of this year, at a basketball game at the Palestra involving St. Joe's Prep. And he got a little emotional. This is at a basketball game a month after that game. He got emotional just for a second thinking about those seniors. It was bothersome to him that he had let those seniors down. And the other young man that you certainly don't want to rile up is Josiah Trotter. He is a monster on a mission. I saw him with his first and only pick 6 at the LaSalle game, where they just sleptwalked through that game. And I remember the coaching staff and the players walking off that field. And I think I called you, Dave, right after the game in the Cardinal O'Hara parking lot. This was good. You see the coaches, the prep coaches nodding and shaking their heads. This is good. This is good, because now we can, now these guys got their scare. It's out of their system. Now it's time to turn around and get ready and focus. Garnet Valley's 7 points came against Prep's second defense. Northeast, I believe, they scored 6 against Prep's second defense. Prep's first team defense has not given up a point since that LaSalle game. Of 3 or 4 weeks ago now. So this is a team that's an incredibly talented team. This is a team that's a very well coached team, and the beast is out there and he's hungry. And yeah, I know Harrisburg's going to be motivated. They have a very, very special tailback, but they have a very special player, a handful of special players in the Harrisburg team. Well, Prep has about 25 of them, and fueling that is an angry 25 group of 25 special players. So I could see this very easily being a mercy rule game.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to this. Could Harrisburg slow down Samaj Jones? He's gonna spread the ball around, and it's gonna be tough for that Harrisburg defense to try to slow down Prep. They need to try to get turnovers, special team play, find ways, to score the ball. But listen, Harrisburg has the D1 talent. They're not going to back down. I think this will be interesting. I think the first quarter will say a lot about how this game's going to go.
I think a big point's going to be special teams. I mean,
Yeah,
I quite honestly, I think Prep has an enormous advantage in special teams, in the kicking game. I think that's, I think the game's going to be, fairly close. Only, like I said, if Harrisburg can run the football and play keep away, even with that, you still have to have some decent special teams to kind of flip the field and what have you. And I think that that might be Harrisburg's Achilles heel, in the kicking game there. Prep still, like they always do, always have a good kicker, always have a good kicking game and that. So, what do you think, Ian? I mean, obviously, as an unbiased observer.
yeah, for sure.
I kind of almost intentionally mentioned the weather earlier when Joe was talking, because it was pretty windy last year in the championship game, and the weather for this game's Saturday, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be too bad.
I just looked up Mechanicsburg's weather. The weather for Saturday says 44 during the day with a rain snow mix going down to 35 in the evening.
Oh,
so
my.
that depending and I mean, these are kids, they play football. It's an outside game that they're used to playing in the elements, as it should be. Domes are for wimps. But but at any rate, weather could be a factor, right? Because especially when you get that rain snow mix, I always say that personally I would much rather it be 20 and snowing than 35 and raining, because cold rain is just the worst.
Yeah, that is the worst.
And snow you can deal with, but rain just soaks through everything. Your hands are cold, the ball gets slippery, everything else that happens, snow you can brush off, but cold rain is the worst. And if it's cold and raining for this game, it could turn into I think St. Joe's Prep their defense is better. I agree with Joe. I think it's probably going to wind up being a mercy rule game. Harrisburg is really going to have to hope that St. Joe's Prep turns the ball over a couple times if they want to hang.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I would totally agree with that.
The issue Prep is going to have, and the issue Samaj Jones is going to have, is being too hyped, is being too emotional. And that was very, very salient point on your part, Dave, in terms of that first quarter, because it could make the game, and it probably would make the game. I mean, I'm looking here at my stat chart. They scored on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They scored in the first 7 possessions in the first half. The first 7 possessions. They scored on.
They did that in Parkland.
Yeah, same. I mean, the same MO. You could tell. You could almost automatically tell the way a Prep game's going to go by almost their first drive. And if Samaj is overthrowing his receivers, if there's times where he does have a tendency to lower his head like a battering ram and often run through the defender, where sometimes he has a problem to protecting himself. His Samaj being balanced is going to be a key. Him controlling those emotions. Now, you're playing in the course of a game. That's like a pin and a balloon, and it just dies down, and we're just playing football. But Ian made a great point too in terms of turnovers. What could possibly happen? That's where Harrisburg, that little crack, that little crease that could open that door. That's where that could possibly be, and not just Samaj. I know that whole Prep team is going to be. I mean, they might not even need a bus to go to Mechanicsburg on Saturday. They could probably all run as a group. They have that much energy going into this.
Yeah. Well, but I think a big advantage for Harrisburg is the fact that they're comfortable in this surroundings. They play in this stadium all the time. They know exactly how long the bus ride's going to be. This is just another game for them. I think that has knowing where you're going, knowing what the locker room looks like, knowing exactly what the day is going to turn out. I think that could be beneficial.
But before though, I mean, this is a group that's just they're used to this. It doesn't matter or Mechanicsburg. It doesn't matter. This game could be played on Mars. That's used to being here in December in the setting. And in terms of the weather, again, great point, Ian. Well, they were playing the windswept little mini squall on Saturday, and the rain couldn't even stop them. So, yeah, I was behind the Garner Valley side, sitting in the press box, and they could be boisterous. After that first drive, I don't think I heard them for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be very interesting. I'll tell you what. That's why, I mean, I think all these games, I think the storyline, and why don't we just get some final thoughts? I want you to stop the screen share.
Yeah, actually, I had a couple.
Oh yeah, we got some extra slides here. Sure.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I got some historical notes here. So the WPIAL does have the most state championships all time of any district. But for the most part, we've got the districts represented that are, I'll say, usually here, right? You've got your District 4, this is their 31st appearance, District 12, now this is their 29th, District 3 with their 30th appearance. But then, Westinghouse out of the Pittsburgh City League, just the third appearance ever by a City League school in a state championship game. So that's pretty cool all around. And then just some state championship history by school. Obviously, Southern Columbia has been the most successful team in these games. They've appeared the most times.
Crazy.
But Aliquippa St. Joe's Prep, this is their 9th state championship game appearance for those schools. Imhotep Charter's in their 7th, McDevitt's in their 6th. First championship game appearance for Belle Vernon, Newman Goretti, Union, and Westinghouse. Just some other notes there. So some of the usual suspects, some new teams joining the fray here. We will have a first-time state champion between Belle Vernon and Newman Goretti, because neither of them have won one before. So just some cool notes there. And then I threw this matchup slide in case we want to do predictions too.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's prediction time. Joe, go ahead.
I'll start at 6A. I'm going to go St. Joe's Prep 48, Harrisburg 6. I'm going to go Imhotep. I'm going to go 18-14 Imhotep. This is pathetic, but maybe my Philadelphia bias is coming through. I'm going to go 4A.
Yeah.
I'm going to go the Quips. I'm going to go the Quips again in a very, very tight game again, 28-24 against McDevitt. I'm going to go Newman Goretti in a tight game, 13-10 against Belle Vernon. I just can't get it out of my mind. I think Southern Columbia's got to mercy rule Westinghouse. I don't want to see it. Westinghouse is a great story. They've been through so much. It's a great job that they've done this year. But Southern Columbia. I'm going to go 54-10, Southern Columbia.
Wow.
And here, Steelton High Spire, I see again winning and beating again a great story in Union, but I see Steelton High Spire winning. I'm going to go 24-14.
All right, Dave, go ahead.
All right. I'm not going to give scores, but I'll give. So I'll go Prep winning 6A. I'm going to pick Pine Richland in 5A. Of course, I'm going to be rooting for Imhotep. I think Pine Richland gets it done. I'm going to give round 2 in a close one to McDevitt. I think they find a way to beat this great Aliquippa team. And then in 3A, I like Belle Vernon. I think they win a close one against Newman Goretti. Southern Columbia, I think they go there, defend their state title, but it's going to be a close game. And Rollers, Steel High, I think once they get rolling, you're going to see a high octane offense put up some numbers this weekend.
Yeah, I like St. Joe Prep in the championship game, despite, obvious. I mean, as Joe said, I mean, they just have far too much depth and talent. The only team that's going to beat Prep is going to be Prep. I like Imhotep. I think that defensively, I think that they can handle Pine Richland, and I think that offensively they'll be able to score enough points. I do like McDevitt in the rematch. It's virtually, and look at Ian. He's like, I like McDevitt. I like McDevitt in the rematch, and in large part because proximity. I think that they're going to play well. And boy, I tell you what, seeing them in the district championship game and seeing it perform last week, pretty incredible group of players. Belle Vernon, I think, will win in 3A. I like Southern Columbia, and I like Steel High.
All right, I guess I'm the only one left. All right, I will. St. Joe's Prep's just too good for Harrisburg. I'm going to go St. Joe's Prep. I'm going to pick Pine Richland over Imhotep. I'm going with Aliquippa because I have learned my lesson in following Western Pennsylvania high school football over the years, and that is to never, ever, ever pick against Aliquippa. So never pick against Aliquippa. I'm going to go Belle Vernon over New Magretti. I think Southern Columbia probably is better than Westinghouse now that they've got a fully healthy team. It would be awesome to see Westinghouse hang with them and make a game out of that. But I think Westinghouse, like I said, is going to turn the ball over a few times, and Southern is going to kind of run out early and do what Southern does. Union against Steel High. Union's been very opportunistic, forced a bunch of turnovers. They've had defensive touchdowns, both in the WPIAL title game and last week against Port Allegheny. But the last time a WPIAL team went up against Steel High, other than Bishop Canavan in week 0 this year, but I was thinking the state championship was Jeanette 2 years ago. And, Jeanette came in as an offense that could do a lot of different things in that game. And Steel High just forced turnover after turnover after turnover. And, Union's not the kind of team that can recover from that. Union's the kind of team that needs to run the ball and play ball control offense. And I just think Alex Irby's too good of a player to let them do that. I think Steel High wins this one fairly handily. Union needs to run the ball and control the clock if they're going to hang in this one, but I don't think they'll be able to do it against the machine that is Steel High.
All right. Well, is that your last slide?
Yeah, this one. I just wanted to, throw out folks watching, thanks for tuning in. You can check out both of our shows, the WPIAL Blitz Show and Fresh Set of Downs on YouTube. You can follow all of our Twitter accounts and check out my WPIAL articles on steelcityblitz.com, everyone else's content on easternpafootball.com. So thanks to the sponsors that have been associated with our shows throughout the year. And thanks everyone for all of your support throughout the year for both of our shows. It's been really cool.
Yeah, it has been really cool. And this is a great show. This is a great way to end the year. Great to have, look, these are 3 of the best guys that know football in Pennsylvania, between Joe, Dave, and Ian. I don't profess that I know much other than, I get to see a lot of games, and that's what's fun for me. I mean, of all of these, championship games here, unfortunately, I didn't see either one of the teams involved in 2A or 3A, but I had seen at least one team or both teams involved, in the other championship game. So a lot of fun for me, throughout the year, broadcasting and whatever like that. And Joe and I and Dave will be on the field and in the press box at the Cumberland Valley here this week. Ian, one of these times, man, we got to get you out for some championships.
Yeah, we'll see. Sometime I'll come out and I will wear my WPIAL versus All Ian shirt to meet up with you guys.
Like
Yeah, no, I tell you what, it's been an enormous amount of fun. Look, I don't mean to brag, but what a great show this has been, with our coaches, with the guys, and with analysis that, quite honestly, nobody else is going to do any better. Ian, thank you so much for all of your work, all year. Dave, Joe, hey, we're going to do this in Cumberland Valley here this week. What do you think?
looking forward to it. It's I was wondering, like, when teams would win and go to Hershey, they would throw the Hershey Kisses. Didn't know what people were going to do about Cumberland Valley. They're going to throw cucumbers. I don't know. But yeah, so you don't
Oh,
know.
Jesus.
Oh
But
my God. No one ever
This is a
did.
family show, Dave. I could say a few other things, but I'll leave it alone.
Nobody, and the funny thing is no one ever told me whatever happened to the Hershey bar. They always give that gigantic Hershey bar to the team. Nobody ever told me whatever happened to. Do they eat it on the bus going home? I mean, do they give it to the fans? Nobody ever told me whatever happened to the Hershey bar. I guess it'll be one of the unanswered questions of humanity. Is like whatever happened to the Hershey bars that they gave away at the state championship games. But oh well, is what it is.
Well, whether it's in Hershey, Cumberland Valley, you know what? We're going to see 6 tremendous games this weekend. Good luck to all the teams. And hey, we look forward to covering all the games.
Yeah, we really appreciate all the fans. And listen, thanks to all of you guys here. And thanks for tuning in. And, boy, we're going to have one heck of a show to top next year for the state championship games. I can tell you that. So for Joe Santalaquita, Dave Micah, Ian McMeans, I'm Bruce Badgley. Thanks for watching the Cumberland Valley edition of the WPIAL Blitz Show and Fresh Set of Downs. We'll see you next year.